Bethany got into some debate over lunch, and I just remember that whenever Mr. Bethany tried to make a point, she would talk over him, and then it started to get quite rude. She got mean, and she got loud, and then I believe it was his 18-year-old boy who was getting ready to go to a really very bright, brilliant.
How old
kid.
is Amber Heard?
He entered the conversation because this was something to do with what he'd studied in school, and he knew quite a lot about it, and he voiced his opinion.
Oh, she's 35.
And Ms. Heard demeaned that young man to the point of where he burst into
Sorry, people kept saying she was in her
tears
20s.
and walked away.
Maybe it's like 10 years ago she was.
And it was at that point that I had spoken to Ms. Heard and said, that's just unacceptable. That behavior is unacceptable. You have no right to demean that boy. You cannot always be right. You should try being wrong sometime because you might learn something. And then I asked her to, I thought it was best that she leave the island.
Could we please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 245? And Mr. Depp, I believe this is another text message with Mr. Bettany that you were shown on your cross-examination.
Motherfucker said, oh, yay.
And directing your attention to the text message at the top of the page from May 30th, 2014. Do you recognize this text message you sent to
I can't believe he's 58.
Yes, I do.
Wowie.
And could you please
58.
describe to the jury what you are conveying to Mr. Bettany in this message?
This again is, I suppose, an example of the way that I write and express myself. That is to say, you stretch your situation out to give him the understanding that you're drowning, essentially. So everything that I say here is, in fact, an impossibility for the human body. I would have been.
Island Boy 3000 tipped $2. Beep beep.
I think he's trying to say that his texts with his friend were to vent.
The hospital for a stomach pump.
I don't know.
There's a line here that, if you don't mind, I say that when I say I'm done, I am admittedly too fucked in the head to spray my rage at the one I love, for little reason as well. I'm too old to be that guy, but pills are fine. The pills that were referenced were the pills that that I was coming off of, and they were the only thing that could give me some semblance of the same numbing effect that I searched for as a child with my mother. And saying that I was too messed up in the head was, it's kind of like if you've been told since you were a child that everything you do is wrong, and that I shouldn't have even been alive, or whatever, joyous little treats that my then very sick, very ill mother brought to me.
In fact, he calls them joyous little treats, like still trying to make.
Ms. Heard was well aware of my
of
past,
such
my
sad
childhood,
things.
therefore was very adept at knowing exactly which buttons to push. So at this point, I mean, I felt like, well, I was that little boy again in my head, like, I guess I am incapable of doing anything right. I guess I will never be happy. I guess that this is
God, they were in
who
such
I am.
a
I can't get along with this person.
toxic relationship.
But it's confusion. It's nothing that you can
on both ends, to
It's
be
nothing
fair.
that anyone could sustain for any length of time. It's nothing that anyone should have to sustain for any length of time when you're being demeaned, berated, judged,
I find
and
it
treated
weird
like
that
a
she's
lesser
looking away
animal. I'm treated as if
and smirking. Why?
I'm only surrounded by yes men, and that I'm a bad father, and that it was these things are endless. They were endless, and
Someone said World Star Court.
there was a call for them. It's hard to
Fucking
understand why
facts.
someone that is supposed to love you could be that cruel. And there's also times where you just say, okay, I'm gonna try to not have I won't fall for the argument. I won't participate in the argument. Because I knew where it would go, into her circular pattern of psychological abuse.
Mr. Depp, what do you mean when you use the term blackout in this text message?
Blackout. Yes, because I'm talking about 1,000 Red Bulls and vodkas, 1,000 of them, 2 bottles of champagne, no food for days, half a bottle of whiskey. Those things, had that been all absolutely true, would have not only caused a blackout, but it would have caused a severe alcohol poisoning, overdose. I would have had to have gone immediately. If that were true, I would have had to.
I have a weird observation to make, and I'm very curious what you guys think, or if this is just in my brain. I feel like her face is... Okay, I don't know if she's like a model or an actress or whatever, but it's clear that she's had like some work done, and she looks great. Like, objectively speaking, she looks really attractive. But I almost feel like her face has been adjusted to look so perfect that it makes her lack a human quality, and it makes her kind of unrelatable. Does that make sense? So although she looks beautiful, I still feel like I think it's easier for people to portray her as like a villain or something, because she almost looks too perfect. And I also think, I am assuming here, but it seems like she likely has had some injectables, which I think makes it harder for her to express emotions as well, which also makes her seem less human, which is just not good in a situation like this when you're in court in front of a jury and hundreds of thousands of people are watching online. This is crazy too, her parents being against her. Why are you even trying to defend her, Major L? What I said is almost the opposite of defending her. She is a 10, you're a 4, and bitch, you're a 0, just like the amount of brain cells you got. Putting it back in my mouth.
You've been taken to a hospital.
On God, I think that guy was joking, and I want you to know I was joking too. Your roast to me roast to you. We're all just kidding around here, right?
Just die. So
I was just trying to make kind of an objective observation, which is just like sometimes when you look so engineered to perfection, you lack a humanity, which makes you less relatable.
No,
or a certain sense of humanity.
blackout is when someone...
And the same goes with expressions. Like people get Botox, they can't move their eyebrows and stuff as much. And you might look great, but you also feel less relatable to people. No. No way. He gave back his Master for the win 201. There's no fucking way, bro. I'm banning you again. Make a better name. I do not accept roasts under such shitty usernames, dude. Oh my god.
Gets so
Heike, that was
drunk
funny though. That
on
was funny.
alcohol, essentially, on alcohol.
He better come back as 201. 202, I mean.
But the pills that I had my addiction,
Oh, what time is it?
that I was addicted to, the roxycodone, which are very, very powerful opiates. Two of those would knock me out. That is to say, so there's blackout, which is a person could be wide awake and wreaking havoc, or having a giggle in a blackout and never remember it. But when you've taken the prescription medication, it knocks you out. You are certainly not, well, you're not in any condition to, first of all, swing at anyone. You are out. You go on what's called the nod, and then it takes you away into sleep. It's just very deep sleep. And I found that much more accepting than having to hear constant badgering and insults.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you Defendant's Exhibit 153, which I believe Mr. Rottenborn also showed you last week.
Yes.
Do you remember seeing this during Mr. Rottenborn's examination of you last week?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay. Now, I'd like to show you the full text exchange, which is in Plaintiff's Exhibit 120. And since there's been a number of text messages drawn from this document, this would be Plaintiff's Exhibit 120C.
Which page would that be?
120. Pieces
This
of
would be
evidence.
4
Jesus
and
Christ.
5, Your Honor.
4 and 5, thank you.
Mr. Depp, do you recognize these text messages?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I'd move Plaintiff's 120C into evidence and ask that it be published to the jury.
All right, 120C in evidence, publish.
Mr. Depp, who are you communicating with in these text messages?
In fact, though it says Marino, these are texts between my ex, that is to say, the Vanessa Paradis, the mother of my children. And this is again, abstract humor that we're conveying back and forth to one another.
I'm curious about
This
these
was
texts.
it was a joke. It certainly wasn't about Miss Heard. We didn't speak of her much together.
Okay.
Do you recall what you were talking about?
I don't recall who it was. I don't recall who it was, but it was someone who had, for some reason, I think it was. Oh, I think that the possibility is that 2013. It might have been, we had a nanny at one point, who in fact, we found her, she was caught stealing, even from my, at the time, my, maybe 10, 11-year-old boy, Jack, who was bright enough, because he knew it, he was bright enough, he had a
Stealing from a
$5
10-year-old?
bill that he wadded up and put on his desk in his bedroom. And when he came home from school...
Your Honor, I'm just going to object on relevance. The question was, who was this about?
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Depp, I'd also like to show you Defendant's
I
Exhibit
wanted to
140.
hear the story.
which I believe Mr. Roddenborn also
Sykkuno.
showed you last week. Do you remember seeing this email exchange?
I'm curious. Yeah, it sounded like a good story.
You could scroll down as well, please. Thank you.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Who are you exchanging these emails with?
Stephen Duders, who was at the time was my
Duders.
assistant.
And what are you and Mr. Duders discussing here?
Sorry. Mr. Duders.
Gobbledygook, essentially. It was,
What is
It
she,
was,
Mr. Mrs. Duders?
as I remember, it was a day of work, and
That's a good fucking name, bro.
there were times when I would send a text to Mr. Duders, because he's the worrisome type. I would send him a text in jest, of course, and to get a rise out of him, to get some reaction out of him. So, you know, I would tell him things like, you know, I woke up and I'm bleeding profusely from the inside of my ear. Is that normal? You know, it would be things like that. So this is exactly the same kind of
He's
thing.
a fucking
We were even
troll.
referencing The Hangover, the film The Hangover, in part of this, about the Mike Tyson and sort of bizarre circus that I was telling him that I had in my room, and that there was blood everywhere. It was a joke to just sort of throw him off, worry him, and ultimately it was a joke, and we were laughing about it.
Mr. Depp, what, if any, portion of this email exchange is literally true?
We're all set to leave here at approximately 1:30 p.m. Hope you rested well.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to talk to you about some text messages that Mr. Rottenborn showed you where you refer to the monster, and this is in the context of in conversations that don't include Ms. Heard. Do you remember seeing some of those communications?
Yes.
First, I'd like to show you Defendant's Exhibit 427, please, which is a text message from you to Jerry Judge. How are you using the term monster in this context when you're communicating with Mr. Judge?
The monster could essentially, the monster could, it could be two separate things. The monster in her eyes was my,
Objection as to what the monster was in Ms. Heard's eyes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's just stay as to her eyes if you want to.
Okay.
Yes. Rephrase.
the monster was defined by Ms. Heard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but hold on. There's a
Text
moment
when you're communicating with Mr. Judge.
where she looks at the camera and it looks so freaky, and I want to pause on it.
The monster, it could be
I don't think
Two-
it's this one.
separate things.
Hold
The
on.
monster in her eyes was my,
Objection as to what the monster was in Ms. Heard's eyes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's just stay as to her eyes if you want to.
Okay.
Yes. Rephrase.
the monster was defined.
There.
Yes. Rephrase.
The monster was defined.
If anyone makes a video about this, this is the fucking screenshot to use. Listen, I know I have editor brain on. I'm just telling you, I saw this and I was like, Monka. Monka.
By Ms. Heard as this out of control.
Same
I
thing.
do think it's.
What Ms.
Never
Heard's view
mind.
of the monster was is not for this witness to say.
Mr. Depp, how do you know how Ms. Heard defined the word monster?
She said the words to me.
And what words did she say with respect to the term monster?
It was her go-to phrase, and it was the go-to phrase for me being, again, you know, as has been embellished and elaborated, the drug use or the drink or the whatever, but the monster was, for me, and again, you start to think about these things and you put it in your own head and what the real context is. The monster was sobriety. The monster was trying to be sober because I was plagued by these requests to stop drinking. But the monster could also be if a conversation, if something starts as a conversation, which would quickly ramp up to quite an antagonizing argument, if I responded to her, if I took part in the verbal back and forth where people do in life end up saying obscenities, screaming obscenities at one another, or calling them names, or when it gets to that point, I mean, the monster was just for me, was just the guy who actually was dumb enough to continue to take part in arguments that would ultimately get nowhere. So that is one of the reasons why I would try to get away
I'm friends with
from
the
Ms. Heard and
monster
not
that's on
participate
your bed.
in her debates and her
I'm
the
friends
knowledge
with
that
the
she wanted to
monster
express
that
to me,
shits on
and
your bed.
circular and painful
I'm not saying
insults that
somebody
were
should make a remix. I'm just
constant. It
not
was
saying
rapid fire.
nobody should.
So I stopped participating in those. I tried to walk away. I tried to go to another room, even to the point of locking myself in rooms so that she just could pound on the door and scream. That was clearly a mistake. I should have never fallen for that or taken the bait to allow myself to get into a conversation which led to an argument, which led to physical violence. It was not going to be good, so I would just walk away, which drove her through the roof.
So, Mr. Depp, why would you use the term monster when communicating with people other than Ms. Heard?
Well, because I heard it all the time. I mean, it was, as I said, that was
It's like
that was her
something he
go-to.
started
The
to
monster,
believe
the
'cause
monster's
that's
here, the
what she
monster's
kept
back,
saying
monster.
to him. So he started reiterating
So
it.
I would refer to the
naturally.
monster again in terms of with Elton or with friends Patti Smith. The monster was like with Elton. It was just the monster was I let the monster creep back in or something. That is sobriety. That's what I'm telling him is I have failed.
Aw.
And I've had a
That
drink,
makes sense
or I've
to me.
been drinking, but my drinking again was not to excess. There was no. I would never went into blackout.
I think he should have explained it instead as the monster being his drug dependency or his alcoholism. That makes sense to me. Like, that is kind of a monster in one's life. If you feel like you let them win and you have a drink and you relapse or whatever
or
it
anything of
is.
that nature. I was disappointed in myself for not staying there. Although, when you are constantly in a position to be harassed by your beloved other, what else could I do? I wanted to be numb. I
Beloved
didn't want
other.
to hear that. I didn't want to feel that, especially from one who had professed such love for me, but gave me mostly hatred.
Your Honor, I'm about to switch subjects, so if this would be a good time for the lunch break.
All right, we started a little later, so I don't mind going a little further.
Okay.
If you want to do that, go ahead.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you Defendant's Exhibit 161. I believe Mr. Rottenborn showed you this last week and again today.
What does Sag mean?
Yes,
Do you recognize these text messages as between you and Ms. Heard?
yes, I do.
It means
Yes,
you
I do.
need BTTV,
Why are you
bro.
informing Ms. Heard that there's a book called Disco Bloodbath?
When I texted her, 2:30 in the afternoon, I was in a bookstore, a used bookstore or bookstore that had a lot of first editions and things like that, which was sort of a passion. And I saw a book called Disco Bloodbath, and I thought it was a funny title. I can't say that I was necessarily referencing anything other than I thought it was a funny title, Disco Bloodbath. It sounded like a sort of a bad slasher movie to me. So I said, just thought you should know that there exists a book titled Disco Bloodbath. That's all.
She literally has not made a single
And
expression in
she-
5 hours.
Said, we need that book. And then she asked me, is it about last Friday night by any chance? And then my
stare.
answer to her,
Exactly.
how can you make me smile about such a hideous moment? The fact is, this is a light-hearted exchange that she's even saying, we need that book. Then she makes a reference to last Friday night, which I don't recall what last Friday night was or whatever, so I just,
That is weird.
how can you make me smile about such a hideous moment? A hideous moment could have been some grotesque thing that we saw on television. It could have been anything. I don't recall now, but all I was
That is a
saying
little
was, and it even
suspicious.
says at the end of my text, that's all. Disco Bloodbath, you know. So this was not we were not butting heads in this exchange whatsoever. It was very
I
lighthearted.
want her to take the stand so bad.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to.
No, this is one of the first things that I find is kind of sus on his end. He sends her a book that is titled Disco Bloodbath, and she's saying that there was like blood in the bath or something. And she's like, how can you make me laugh about such a terrible thing that happened last Friday? And he's saying he doesn't recall what happened? I don't know. Is that not sussy? Like, wouldn't it be weird to say that via text unless she's already trying to set him up through text messages? She could have had her period in the bathtub. True. But I guess my point is he doesn't even know what she's talking about. When you were high as a kite, memory slips. I understand that. But that's not really helpful for him. This happened many years ago, so it makes sense that he doesn't remember now. I think this is true, but when you text about an instance, like in that moment, he should have remembered, but it seems like he didn't even remember at that time. Like, if you showed me texts about almost anything that I've discussed, I think I'd be able to remember what it is. But he's saying even at that time when he was responding, he didn't know. So I guess that's why it's confusing. True. My point is, in that moment when he sent her that text, he also didn't know what he was talking about. You're young. He's 50. True. This was 10 years ago, though. He was 48. It does kind of give me Zoomer texting boomer vibes. Like your grandma going along with your jokes where he's like, haha, yeah, last Friday, but he has no idea what's going on. But even then, it's not helpful in any case to say, I don't remember. Because then you sort of have to give the benefit of the doubt to the person that does remember. But also I have to go.
Defendant's Exhibit 375, which is another document Mr. Rottenborn showed you last week.
Yes.
Could you please remind the jury what's reflected in this photograph?
This is from Australia. On March 8th, I believe it was, where after my finger had been, the tip of my finger had been taken off, I began to, I was in such shock, I just started writing on the mirror, on walls, and basically what these were for me to make.
Maybe that's what she was talking about? Disco bloodbath? Like, oh, you wrote on the bathroom walls? So, I don't fucking know. Anyways, I'm so sorry. I gotta go. I love you guys very much. I had a great time, honestly, watching this with you guys. I just like feeling like I can hop on stream and we can enjoy a multitude of things together. Feels great, man. Thank you so much for watching. Maybe we can watch some more of this in the future. If not on the actual days, and maybe watch some recaps, see what happens. It's quite interesting. More tomorrow. Tomorrow is OTV camping trip. If you guys go on my Iman Twitter,